Jones, once a respected name in hip-hop, now finds himself at the center of a growing scandal that could end his career forever. The recent explosive airport fight has sent shockwaves through the industry, leaving fans and insiders alike stunned at the brutal footage that has surfaced. What started as a simple travel day quickly spiraled out of control, leading to an altercation so intense that security had to step in. Now, whispers of legal trouble are growing louder, and some reports even suggest that a lawsuit could be on the horizon. Social media is on fire, with viral clips of the incident racking up millions of views in just hours. Everyone wants to know, what really happened? Was Jim Jones the aggressor or the victim? And why are industry insiders saying this might be the final nail in the coffin for his career? Some sources claim that major brands and partnerships are already pulling away, fearing the backlash from this public meltdown. Meanwhile, close associates are scrambling for damage control. But is it too late? This isn't just another rapper caught in controversy. This is a career-threatening crisis that has the whole industry talking. And as more shocking details emerge, the question remains, can Jim Jones survive this? Or is this truly the end of the road? Buckle up, because what we're about to reveal will leave you speechless. The tension in the airport had been simmering for a while before it finally erupted into chaos. Witnesses say Jim Jones arrived at the terminal looking agitated, his usual swagger replaced by a tense, almost restless energy. He had been spotted pacing near the check-in counter, talking heatedly on his phone. Some fans recognized him and debated approaching for a quick selfie, but something about his demeanor warned them to stay back. His voice was sharp, his hand gripping his phone so tightly that his knuckles turned white. No one could have predicted what would happen next. At first, everything seemed normal, just another day at the airport. But then, an argument broke out. Sources claim Jim Jones was upset about a seating issue, while others insist the situation was far more personal. A man in a dark hoodie, reportedly another passenger, began gesturing aggressively toward Jim. At first, Jim seemed to brush him off, muttering something under his breath. But the other man wasn't backing down. Their voices grew louder, attracting the attention of nearby travelers who quickly pulled out their phones to record. And then it happened, the moment that changed everything. Eyewitnesses say the man stepped too close to Jim, pointing a finger in his face. In a split second, Jim shoved the man's hand away, and just like that, things escalated. The man retaliated, shoving Jim back, and within seconds, the situation exploded into a full-blown fight. Luggage toppled over, passengers gasped, and security alarms blared in the background as fists started flying. One witness, a young woman who had been filming from a distance, later told reporters, "It happened so fast. 1 minute, they were arguing, and the next, Jim just swung. Everyone was screaming. It was crazy." The footage, which has now gone viral, shows Jim throwing a devastating right hook that sent the man staggering backward. But Jim didn't stop there. He lunged forward, grabbing the man's shirt and pulling him down. Screams filled the air as people backed away, afraid of getting caught in the crossfire. Airport security rushed in, struggling to separate them, but by then, the damage was done. The man, clearly injured, clutched his face as blood dripped onto his white t-shirt. Some onlookers shouted for someone to call the police, while others simply stood frozen, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Jim, breathing heavily, was pulled back by members of his entourage, but the fury in his eyes hadn't faded. It was clear, this wasn't just some random fight. There was something deeper behind it. The video spread like wildfire. Within minutes, social media was flooded with posts, clips, and heated discussions about the altercation. Jim Jones is out here throwing hands like he's still in the streets. One tweet read, "Bro's career is done after this. Lawsuit incoming." Another user posted, sharing slowed-down footage of the punch. The internet tore into the situation, with fans split between defending Jim and condemning his actions. Some argued that Jim was just defending himself, while others pointed out that, as a public figure, he should have handled the situation differently. But what really sent shockwaves through the industry was the aftermath. Minutes after the fight, airport police arrived, surrounding Jim and leading him into a private holding area. It was clear that authorities weren't taking this lightly. And then, the real bombshell dropped. Rumors surfaced that the man Jim had fought was planning to press charges. A leaked airport report suggested that the victim was claiming assault and public endangerment, which could mean serious legal consequences for Jim. That's when the whispers started. Would this fight cost Jim his career? Industry insiders quickly began discussing the potential fallout. Some sources suggested that major brands and business partners were reconsidering their association with him. Others speculated that Jim's status in the music industry could be at risk, as executives began weighing whether this scandal was too big to ignore. For Jim, the reality of the situation hadn't fully sunk in yet. As he sat in that airport holding room, his mind racing, he had no idea how much worse things were about to get. The fight was only the beginning. What happened next would shake the entire hip-hop world. As Jim Jones sat in the airport's holding room, his mind raced with a million thoughts. The fight had happened so fast. 1 second, it was just an argument, and the next, fists were flying. Now he was sitting in a cold, windowless room, waiting for the next move from law enforcement. His phone buzzed nonstop in his pocket, but he couldn't check it. Security had taken his belongings, and all he could do was sit there, running through every possible outcome in his head. Outside that small room, chaos had erupted online. Social media was ablaze with reactions, and major news outlets had already picked up the story. Rapper Jim Jones involved in violent airport altercation. Headlines like this were plastered across entertainment blogs, with thousands of people sharing their opinions. One viral tweet read, "Jim Jones really risked it all at the airport? Man's too old for this. Career might not recover from this one." Another fan posted, "If this dude presses charges, Jim might be looking at a serious lawsuit. What was he even thinking?" Everywhere he turned, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the conversation was the same. The question wasn't just about the fight anymore. People were asking if Jim Jones' career was officially over. But what really turned this situation into a full-blown crisis was what happened next. Just hours after the incident, a new angle of the fight was leaked. The first videos had already painted Jim in a bad light, but this new footage made things look even worse. In this clip, recorded from a different side of the terminal, Jim could be seen throwing the first punch. It didn't matter what had been said, what led up to it. This was the image the public would remember. The footage made its way to major news sites, and suddenly, the narrative shifted. Jim wasn't just a rapper caught in a heated moment. He was now being painted as the aggressor. That's when the legal threats started pouring in. The man Jim had fought, whose identity was still unknown at the time, was reportedly speaking with his lawyers. Multiple insiders claimed that he was considering pressing assault charges, and if that happened, Jim could be looking at a long and expensive legal battle. One entertainment lawyer even went on a podcast to discuss the possible outcomes. If this man decides to sue, Jim Jones could be in serious trouble. Given the footage and the public nature of the fight, the prosecution would have plenty of evidence to build a case. And let's not forget, the airport is federal property. If authorities decide to pursue charges on top of a lawsuit, this could escalate fast. Jim's team knew they had to act fast. His manager, publicist, and legal team were already in damage control mode. Statements were being drafted, phone calls were being made, and behind the scenes, desperate attempts were being made to reach a settlement before things got worse. But then, things did get worse. Brands started pulling away. One of Jim's upcoming business deals, a potential collaboration with a luxury streetwear brand, was suddenly under review. Sources claimed that the company wasn't sure if they wanted their name attached to someone caught in a violent public scandal. And it didn't stop there. Music industry insiders started whispering that some of Jim's upcoming projects might be in jeopardy. A few key business partners had gone silent, refusing to comment on whether they would still be working with him after this incident. Some fans remained loyal, defending Jim and saying that the whole thing was being blown out of proportion. Man was defending himself. Y'all act like you've never seen a fight before. One user commented under a video of the altercation, but others weren't so forgiving. This ain't 2005. The industry doesn't tolerate this type of drama anymore. One wrong move, and your career can disappear overnight. Another tweet read, Jim Jones had been in the game long enough to know how quickly public opinion could turn. He had seen it happen to other artists before. One moment, they were at the top, and the next, they were being blacklisted. Was this fight going to be the moment that ruined everything for him? As his team scrambled to put out the fire, another unexpected twist emerged. Someone had leaked more details about the man Jim fought. According to a new report, the man wasn't just a random passenger. He had ties to the music industry. Rumors started swirling that he was an up-and-coming music executive, someone with connections to major record labels. If that was true, then this situation wasn't just a legal nightmare. It could also spell trouble for Jim's industry relationships. His connections in the business had always been one of his biggest assets. If word got out that he had attacked someone influential, doors could start closing. The stakes were getting higher by the hour. Now, Jim wasn't just facing a lawsuit. He wasn't just dealing with public backlash. His entire career was hanging in the balance. And the worst part, this was only the beginning. Jim Jones sat in the backseat of his blacked-out SUV, staring blankly out the window as the city lights blurred past him. His team had finally managed to get him out of the airport without further incident, but the damage was already done. His phone, which he had finally gotten back from security, was a disaster. Hundreds of missed calls, unread messages, and social media notifications blowing up. Everyone wanted to know what had really happened, but at this point, even Jim wasn't sure how to spin the situation. His lawyer had made one thing clear: staying silent wasn't an option. The leaked footage of him throwing the first punch had already painted him as the aggressor, and if he didn't address it soon, the public narrative would be set in stone. But the problem was, any statement he made would have legal consequences. If the man he fought did decide to press charges, Jim's own words could be used against him. As he scrolled through Twitter, his heart sank. The headlines were getting worse by the hour. Jim Jones' violent outburst caught on camera, legal action looming. Industry insiders say Jim Jones' career is hanging by a thread after airport fight. Could this be the end of Jim Jones' legacy? Everyone had an opinion, and none of them were good. But then, Jim noticed something even more concerning. A familiar name was now involved in the scandal minus 50 Cent. 50 had never been one to hold back, especially when it came to clowning other rappers, and Jim Jones was no exception. He had already posted a meme on Instagram, using a screenshot from the airport fight and captioning it, "Damn Jimmy, you out here catching fades at TSA. Career ain't looking too good, my guy. Hashtag show the check it that tattoo too." It was classic 50. Publicly roasting someone when they were already down. And it worked. The post had millions of views, and suddenly, the situation had turned from serious to straight-up embarrassing. But it didn't stop there. Within hours, other rappers started chiming in. Some made jokes, others distanced themselves, and a few actually defended Jim. But one thing was clear: his name was in every conversation. A well-known hip-hop podcast brought on an industry insider who claimed to have exclusive details about what went down before the fight. I heard Jim wasn't even supposed to be on that flight. He was already heated about something else. And when dude said the wrong thing, it just popped off. Another guest added, "Word on the street is that the guy he hit is tied to some major players in the industry. If he wants to, he could make sure Jim never gets another deal again." That was the real fear now. Legal troubles were one thing, but being blackballed, that was a death sentence in the industry, and the biggest sign that Jim might be in serious trouble. His business partners had gone silent. Before the fight, Jim had been in talks for a new partnership with a major liquor brand, a deal that could have been worth millions. But now, no response, no calls back, nothing. A high-profile booking agent who had been working on securing a new tour for Jim also wasn't answering. It was clear people were waiting to see how this played out before they committed to working with him again. But the worst blow came later that night. Just as Jim was trying to figure out his next move, a new lawsuit was officially announced. The man from the airport, who had finally been identified as Trey Mitchell, a rising music executive, was taking legal action. His lawyers had just filed an assault lawsuit, claiming physical injury and emotional distress. According to the official statement, Mr. Mitchell suffered injuries due to the unprovoked attack by Mr. Jones. We are seeking damages for medical expenses, pain, and suffering, as well as punitive damages. This was exactly what Jim had feared. The lawsuit meant this situation wasn't going away anytime soon. Now, every major media outlet had a fresh angle to run with. And worse, there were now rumors that authorities were considering pressing criminal charges. If that happened, Jim wouldn't just be dealing with a civil case, he could be facing actual jail time. His team immediately went into full crisis mode. His lawyer was already drafting a response, trying to settle the lawsuit before it turned into an even bigger media circus. His PR team started working on an official statement, something that would make Jim look like the victim instead of the aggressor. And behind the scenes, his people were reaching out to every connection they had to make sure the situation didn't get worse. But there was one problem. Jim Jones wasn't good at staying quiet. All of this had made him angry. The way the media was twisting the story, the way people in the industry were turning on him, the way 50 Cent was out here making jokes like this wasn't serious. So, against his team's advice, Jim did what he always did when he had something to say. He went on Instagram Live. Sitting in his dimly lit home studio, a drink in one hand and his phone in the other, Jim let loose. You all really out here acting like I'm the bad guy? Like I ain't been in this game, handling my business, staying solid? Man, let me tell y'all something. Y'all don't know half of what really went down at that airport. He took a sip, shaking his head. First off, that dude was talking reckless, disrespecting me to my face like I was supposed to just take it. Nah, y'all wouldn't have. Don't act like y'all wouldn't have reacted the same way. Then he got real direct. And to all these so-called industry people acting funny now, pulling back deals, acting like they don't know me. Bet, keep that same energy. I don't need y'all. The live stream went viral instantly. Some people supported him, saying he was standing his ground. Others thought he had just made things even worse. One thing was for sure, this wasn't over. If Jim thought the drama was peaking now, he had no idea what was coming next. Jim Jones might have thought his Instagram Live rant would clear the air, but instead, it did the opposite. The video spread like wildfire, making headlines across every major gossip site. Jim Jones defends airport fight, blames the industry for his fallout. Jim Jones' emotional rant, career in freefall? Did Jim Jones just ruin his own legal defense? The backlash was immediate. His legal team was furious. The moment he ended the live, his lawyer called him up, voice tight with frustration. Jim, what the hell was that? We're trying to make you look remorseful, not combative. Jim scoffed. Man, you saw how they was talking about me. I had to say something. And now you've given them more ammo. Do you even realize what you just did? You admitted to the fight. You basically justified it. If they push for criminal charges, that video is Exhibit A. That part hit Jim hard. He wasn't scared of lawsuits. He had money for that. But jail time? That was a different story. And then things got worse. The man he fought, Trey Mitchell, broke his silence. Trey released a public statement, carefully crafted by his PR team. It was calm, measured, and painted him as the victim. I never expected a simple disagreement to turn violent. I respect Jim's legacy in hip-hop, but no one should have to fear for their safety. I just hope the industry holds everyone to the same standard of accountability. That was the final blow. Jim had lashed out, while Trey had played it smart. Now, Jim was looking like the reckless one, while Trey was gaining public sympathy. And then came the worst possible news. His lawyer called him again, but this time, his tone wasn't just frustrated. It was serious. Jim, the DA is looking into this. If they move forward with criminal charges, you could be facing assault charges. Depending on how hard they go, there's a real chance of jail time. Jim felt his stomach drop. How real we talking? They've got the footage. They've got your statement from IG Live. And now, with Trey's legal team pushing, they might want to make an example out of you. For the first time since the fight, Jim felt real fear. If he got locked up, even for a short time, it would change everything. His sponsorship deals? Gone. His touring opportunities? Done. His reputation? Destroyed. And that's when reality really hit him. The industry was already moving on. Just days ago, Jim's name had been all over hip-hop blogs, but now, the headlines were shifting. A new rap beef had started. A celebrity couple had broken up. A major album was dropping. And just like that, his scandal was fading. But that wasn't a good thing, because it meant people weren't waiting around to see if he'd recover. They were just leaving him behind. His phone, once ringing nonstop, was now quiet. Industry friends who had been supporting him, silent. Even his own team was starting to lose faith. One of his closest business partners, who had been handling a major brand deal, sent him a short but brutal text. "Bro, they're pulling out. They don't want the bad press. We'll talk later." Jim tossed his phone across the room. He had built his whole career on being respected in the game, on being someone people couldn't ignore, and now he was one bad court ruling away from becoming just another fallen rapper. He had one last move left: damage control. The next morning, Jim's team put together a formal statement, carefully worded, carefully rehearsed. This time, he wasn't going live. He wasn't making emotional rants. Instead, they sent out an apology video. Sitting in a neutral setting, no jewelry, no flashy background, just Jim, looking serious. "I want to take a moment to address everything that's been happening. I regret how things escalated at the airport. It was never my intention for things to get physical. I let my emotions get the best of me, and for that, I apologize." He took a deep breath. "I also want to acknowledge Trey Mitchell. We've had conversations behind the scenes, and I hope we can both move forward in a way that's positive." Of course, that was a lie. He and Trey hadn't talked, but it didn't matter. The industry needed to hear this. "I love this culture, and I know I have to do better. I'm taking this as a lesson, and I hope y'all can grow with me." The video was strategic, not too apologetic, not too aggressive, just the right balance to make people start reconsidering the narrative. And it worked, sort of. Some blogs started changing their headlines. "Jim Jones takes accountability after airport incident." "Jim Jones apology. Is redemption possible?" But others weren't convinced. "Too little, too late." Some fans say Jim Jones' apology isn't enough. It was damage control, but it wasn't enough to bring him back fully. Because his biggest problem wasn't just public opinion, it was his legal case. And just when Jim thought things couldn't get worse, his lawyer called again. "Jim, I need you to sit down for this." What now? Trey's legal team just filed for a settlement demand. It's high, and if we don't pay up, they're pushing for criminal charges. Jim clenched his jaw. They had him cornered. If he paid, it was an admission of guilt. If he didn't, he could be facing real time. And the worst part, the industry was watching. Because if he couldn't recover from this, if he couldn't fix his image, then Jim Jones, the legend, the icon, would be finished. And the only question left was, would he survive this scandal? Or was this the end of his career for good? And just like that, Jim Jones finds himself at the crossroads of his career. Will he fight the legal battle and clear his name? Or will the pressure force him to settle and accept the consequences? The industry is watching, the fans are debating, and one wrong move could mean the end of everything he's built. But what do you think? Is Jim Jones being unfairly targeted, or did he bring this downfall upon himself? Will he bounce back stronger, or is this the final chapter of his legacy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on all the twists and turns of this unfolding drama, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Because trust me, this story is far from over.